What do we want to do for the tweet? Oh, let's see. Testing Twitch. Yeah, Twitch is good. Gotta get to YouTube. It cracks me up every time how far back that YouTube is. Yeah, all right. I'll just do the tweet while you're starting, so I'm good to go.
Hello and welcome to episode 168 of the Ego Chall Podcast. My name is Preston Byers, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Justin Binkowski. And on today's episode, we officially have confirmation about Dylan WRECKS heading to the Carolina Royal Ravens, and we have some really big matches to finish up the Major 3 qualifiers to talk about. We'll give our predictions near the end of the show, but before we get to any of that, how are you doing, Bink?
All right, like you said, not a ton to talk about today, really. We just got the roster confirmation, which we were talking about last episode, and at least I wasn't too convinced that we were going to have the move confirmed by the time we did this show, but here we are. We actually got the news confirmed for once, so that's good. And then, this is the last week of qualifiers before Major 3 next week. And there's, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks, there's only 5 matches for each team. So there's a lot of implications on the line for who starts in winner bracket, who starts in losers at the major, and all that stuff with, literally these matches could be the difference between some teams making champs and some teams not. So it's getting down to the nitty gritty, and I'm ready to dive right in.
Yeah, so like you said, we got confirmation. Surprisingly, we got confirmation before these matches actually began. Earlier today, the Royal Ravens announced WRECKS' arrival into their roster. Of course, he's replacing Vivid, who the team released earlier this week. WRECKS, like we said on the last episode of the podcast, he's been in Challengers for a while now. I looked it up, and I don't know exactly when he was technically eligible, but I think 2019 for sure. So that gives us 6 years. So he's in his mid-20s, which is a little bit later than you would see a lot of players make their CDL debut. But I think it's probably long overdue, and now he gets this opportunity. It is a very big opportunity. This isn't like one of those roster changes we see a lot in the mid-season where you're coming into a team that has no shot at even making it to a major, into the major winners bracket. That kind of seems like a long shot. This is a team that, despite their struggles against the top teams in the league, are consistently among the best and among the most competitive in the CDL. So he has a really big responsibility to take on with this Carolina roster. That being said, I want to kind of throw it to you because we did talk quite a bit about WRECKS in the last show, so I don't want to rehash that exact conversation that we had just 2 days ago. But looking at WRECKS coming into this team, like I said, a team that has already been very competitive, what would make this roster change a success in your mind? I think Carolina is 5th, just barely, I believe. They're in 5th place in the CDL. What does success look like for you in terms of WRECKS coming into the Royal Ravens?
I think the big thing for me, well, I guess we can look at this in 2 ways. Individually, kind of like you said, we've talked about this last episode. There's that meter that I've been talking about for new players coming into the league, and talked about Neptune being on one end of the spectrum and Lunars being on the other so far this season. So where WRECKS is going to fall in that conversation individually is going to be a huge, just talking point around this move, around whether this move works for Carolina, whether WRECKS has a future in the CDL and seasons to come, all that stuff. But for Carolina as a team, I just think the biggest thing for him is going to be providing, a little bit more consistent slaying than possibly Vivid did in some of the respawns. I feel like I said it last episode. He's joining a team that is one of the best, if not the best, search team in the league. I think statistically they've said on the broadcast that Carolina's search win percentage is the highest. And I said last episode, Vivid is you can't take anything away from Vivid in the search department just because he's a really good search player in my mind. So he definitely contributed to Carolina's stature in search so far this year. But Rex is joining a team with guys like Slasher and TJ who are, very good search players themselves. And Slasher in particular has his method and style of search and destroy, where Rex joining this team, he should be able to, lead him and put him in the positions to succeed, put him in the positions he wants him to be in for the team to succeed. And I guess I wasn't really thinking about it from this way until I just started talking, but you can say as much as you want to see Carolina improve in hard points by bringing Rex into the lineup, because I think that's been the roller coaster of Carolina being good and being bad and hard point throughout this season. Just it's been up and down for them all year. If Rex joins this team and their search gets worse, which could happen when you make a roster change, what does the future look like for this Ravens team? We've seen it on other teams where, they bring someone in and search gets worse, but the hard points gets better, so they can still win series. It just looks different. They're winning like 3-1 series instead of going to game fives and clutching up in those game fives. So that's where I'll be paying attention. I definitely want to see what kind of impacts Rex has for Carolina in the respawns, but also on the flip side of that, I want to make sure he isn't, causing a big drop off in the search. And I don't know enough about Rex as a player to know his history in search or anything like that. So like if he's some old school search star that I wasn't familiar with, then this is obviously a moot point. But for lack of having another way to phrase it, yeah, like he can join this team and have an immediate impact. And Carolina's already had an event this year where they made it to a championship Sunday. They got fourth at Major 1, and notably that's when Vivid had like the issue with his eye and everything. So they're playing with the one-eyed Raven, as they were calling him. Miles coined it. And if they can get fourth place with a guy dealing with that situation, even though Vivid was playing pretty well statistically at the event despite the circumstances, I think that's got to be the goal for this team. Now it is going to be tough with limited practice heading into Major 3, but I'll say due to their position in the CDL point standings and everything, if this move for Rex joining Carolina is to be a success in my eyes, it would result in them making Championship Sunday at Major 4, having a good performance in the Major 4 qualifiers. I'm not going to immediately throw out this Major 3 cycle with Rex, but they have only have one match remaining. It's against LA Thieves, a team that Carolina has struggled against all year, even without Rex. So I am expecting him to be 0-1 with Carolina heading into Major 3, wherever they fall in the bracket and whatnot. I mean, it would obviously suck if for Carolina if they just fall out in the top 12 finish at Major 3. But again, I think we kind of hashed this out last episode too. It's like this is a move you make at this time as opposed to before the Major 3 qualifiers if you're thinking ahead and trying to think, does making a roster move here put us in a better position to potentially compete for the championship at champs versus the short-term return of trying to win Major 3 with the roster that you've made a championship Sunday with. So I think it's gonna, a lot to look forward to with this team. I feel like the other thing that really Rex, I guess he could influence in some capacity, but just because of his, presumed role as that flex AR, I don't know how much of an impact he'll have, but the other conversation really for Carolina has been Gwyn translating his results and superb play online to the LAN events. So that's something we got to keep an eye on with Carolina overall, because then, I mean, how are we going to be able to judge Rex's performance going forward if, Carolina just struggles on LAN because their star player isn't, producing the results they're used to and producing online when they're playing at these majors. So definitely an interesting move. I'm excited. I feel like the writing's been on the wall for Vivid, unfortunately, for a while now. I think WRECKS getting a chance here is good for him. He's just got to seize it and show us what he's capable of. And if he's able to be that like 1-2 slaying punch with Gwyn for an SMG AR duo, and then Slasher and TJ can do their thing. And I mean, they both, Slasher and TJ, have had monster performances at different times this year, even in respawns. So like if they can all put it together at the same time, this could be an interesting team. We did talk last episode too about Carolina struggling against the other top teams. So that, I guess, could be another way to evaluate this change going forward. Again, it'll be unfair to evaluate WRECKS's performance or just this roster move based on one match against LA Thieves. But if they do look more competitive this weekend than they did in all of their previous matches against LA Thieves, which in fairness shouldn't be that hard. They've been 100-point clubbed at least 3 times that I can remember off the top of my head. That'll be something to keep an eye on. But yeah, a lot to look forward to really with this team. The more I've been talking about it, the more excited I am for to seeing how this plays out.
Because this is a roster change, not like LAG, they make these roster changes and you're hoping that they can just kind of get out of the basement and there's some kind of improvement to even somewhat average. This is, in theory, a roster change to raise the ceiling and become a true championship contender for Carolina. That might not happen. Realistically, it is very hard to break into that true contender, the archetype or whatever. But Carolina has kind of set themselves up to be in a very good position. Like I said, they're in 5th place, but they're only, I think they're behind Vancouver by 5 points for 4th place. They're only behind Toronto, who is in 3rd by 20 points. So there is a real possibility, if they have good qualifiers or they do have good major performances, that they could leapfrog Vancouver or leapfrog Toronto and get into that top 3. But they're going to need to beat these top teams. And I think that, for me, is what I would, or how I would gauge success for Carolina. Are they able to even somewhat beat Vancouver, Toronto, LAT, and Atlanta? Not saying that they're going to beat all of them or they're going to sweep them or anything, but the stat that I read off on the last episode, since the beginning of Major 2, they're 0-7, or I believe it was 0-7 against those 4 teams, and they're 9-0 against the bottom 6 teams, and that, or bottom 7 teams, I believe. And so that just can't happen. Like, the beating the bottom teams is very good, and that's not something that even like LAT can always say, because they have struggled in some random matches against the Boston Breach, for example, where Carolina has not. So that's very good, but if you're not able to even take one match against Vancouver, Toronto, LAT, or Atlanta, then it's going to be hard for you to be considered a contender by any means. And while you were talking, I was looking up some of Carolina's stats, because you said that they're the best S&D team, and statistically that is correct. If you're including both LAN and online, they are the top S&D team in the league. They've won 64% of their search and destroys this year. On LAN, they're kind of keeping pace. They're just a little bit below that, but it's still, or actually they're a little bit above that. Online, they're a little bit below that. But really, what is the biggest difference, and it's something that you alluded to, was the hard points. So when they're online, Carolina is the 4th best hardpoint team. They've won 59% of their hard points. When they're on LAN, they are the 4th worst hardpoint team. They have only won 1/3 of their hardpoint maps. Of course, the level of competition is different between online and offline matches, especially with Carolina. They're playing, especially because they're starting in the winners bracket. So you're starting with teams like LAT. They played LAT, I think, multiple times on LAN now. You're playing FaZe, Toronto, etc. So you could say, you could give them that excuse, but they have to improve in hardpoint. And part of that is Gwyn. I don't know how much you can pin it on him. I'm sure part of that was Vivid. There's only 4 people on a team. So a big chunk of the blame can go to any individual player if you're really looking for it. But 33% win percentage in probably the most important or second most important game mode, that's just unacceptable. You're not going to be able to consistently win those matches. I mean, they're only better than OpTic, C9, and Vegas on land in hardpoint. And obviously, like, Vegas hasn't even won a map in hardpoint on land. So, it's got to change, and hopefully WRECKS is able to rectify some of those issues that they've run into on land this year.
Well, that is an important way to look at it, but also some, what is the exact number, like, record-wise for their hardpoint?
I don't know. I'm just looking at the leaderboard, so just giving the win percentages.
Well, the reason I ask is because I knew they played them at least once, but I just checked. In both majors this year, Carolina's first round losers bracket match was against Vegas Falcons, and notably it's against the all-Saudi Vegas Falcons at both of those events. So they essentially got a free map win in every mode twice against those two teams, and that's on land. So, I mean, you could take 2 hardpoint wins away from them if you really wanted to, and that puts them in an even worse position against, you said 30-something%. If you take 2 hardpoint wins away, they're probably I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 2-12 record on land this year or something like that. I mean, I could probably eyeball it. They lost to the Thieves 3-1 in the first round of Major 1. They got slammed in 2 hard points at Major 1 there, so I know that. They did lose a hard point so they 3-0 Falcons, didn't lose bracket win round 1, so that's at least 1-2 record in hard point. Against OpTic in round 2, they won 3-1 and they lost map 1. That was the only hard point OpTic won at the event, I'm pretty sure.
The exact number of their total win-loss, so they're 4-8 in hardpoint on land. So
they're 2-8 against non-Falcons teams.
So they're winning 20% of their maps in hardpoint, which is, like I said, it's unacceptable. Like, if you're going to be a top team, and this was something that jumped out to me. I did not realize this. I don't know if you did. Do you know how good FaZe has been in search on land this year? Do you know how good FaZe has been in search and destroy on land this year?
And they can't be better than 64%, so maybe
no,
60%?
Carolina has the overall, so online and offline. So they have a 64%. FaZe total is in third at 62.5, but on land, they've won 91.7% of their searches. So they're probably 9-2, 10-1, something like that, which is incredible. Carolina's in second at 66.7, so they've won 2/3 of their searches, but for FaZe to be that dominant, and that's kind of why they've been able to have the success that they have had this season at the majors. It's because when it really comes down to it, they might not be always the best control team. They might lose some hard points, even though I believe they're the second or third best hard point team on land, but they are the best undoubtedly in search, and that really means a lot, especially when you get to the grand finals. So Carolina, if they could bring up the hard point, if they could just split hard points each series, they have a real shot at beating the top teams. Maybe not FaZe. FaZe is a different animal, and we'll see what happens with LAT because that matchup has been so tough. But yeah, I do think that there's a good reason why you should be optimistic about WRECKS. Even if you don't really know a ton about him, I think some change could be helpful. And I think they said that on last Wednesday's pod, I believe, where, this is not a move to beat the bottom teams. This is a move to beat the top teams. And they do have to probably take that risk, take the leap by replacing Vivid, who statistically has not been very good, but he has contributed to this team. And I don't believe he held back this team, and they would be the best team in the world if he wasn't on the roster. I don't necessarily think it is like that. I do think that he has been helpful to get this team to this point. But to get to another point, to get to the further point that Carolina is certainly trying to get to. I think WRECKS could help get them there, but obviously everything kind of remains to be seen with that. And Carolina still has they're probably going to have some growing pains, I would imagine, and they're probably going to have a lot of pain, especially this weekend, because they play the Thieves again. So, we'll keep updated. We'll kind of track that as, obviously not this match, but we'll see really how they perform at Major 3, especially if they have multiple matches. That would certainly help us kind of get a clear view of this new addition of the Carolina Royal Ravens and how they're performing, especially in hardpoint. But we'll talk about that at some point down the line. Something that you put in this the notes, and I'm not even sure. I don't think you're too sure about the validity of it. If it was just some memes or whatever, but potentially, I don't know. JoeDeceives being a target for OpTic Texas next year. Valid or not, I do think it's interesting that there is probably real conversations happening behind the scenes with OpTic about who they could target in the offseason, who could be a realistic option to kind of boost their roster. Obviously, if they win champs or have this really strong end to the season and surprise everybody again with this current roster, then it's kind of a moot point. But I think we both don't necessarily think that's going to happen. So what do you think about just the idea of JoeDeceives going to OpTic and bringing that fast-paced style to OpTic Texas?
Yeah, before I do that, does my mic sound okay?
Yeah, sounds fine.
All right. I don't know. Shout out Fame Paid and YouTube chat for trying to help out. I don't know what the issue was, but hopefully it's fixed now. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with this stuff. I mean, just based on a couple tweets, really, that are suggesting that, something might be happening. And, I really, the one tweet I saw was from Ace ZVR. There's another one from from Pleb CZN that kind of said, I think that second one from Pleb was more of a meme, and that's what I was kind of, I put in our notes. At least it felt like it was a bit of a meme, at least. And the only reason I even bring it up is that Beans and Insight played into it a little bit, at least as far as I can see without much further context, because Beans posts "So long, partner" Toy Story Woody GIF, and then Insight tweets at JoeDeceives, "It's been a pleasure," and that was like both within 15 minutes. So I just thought that was funny. End of the day, I mean, the way Toronto has done business in the past couple of off seasons and really in totality of the CDL is they've allowed their players to explore their options after the season. Now, JoeDeceives might be a rare case where, especially if these talks start to heat up, or if there weren't even any talks and they just start to happen in any sense of the word, then maybe Toronto decides to hang on to him. But I mean, we even saw just this past season, like they let Kleenex and Insight, and obviously they let Scrap and Envoy too, but they let the team from last year become restricted free agents, go out there, test the market, explore their options, and in the end, Scrap and Envoy leave, but Insight and Kleenex came back. So there is a world where if maybe they don't win a title this year, Toronto is willing to move on from JoeDeceives. But I feel like, especially lately, I feel like he's been really the bright spot on that Toronto team. He's had multiple moments where he's just absolutely popping off, and it's kind of a cool story. I know he doesn't like the moniker of it, but JoeDeceives, when he first breaks into the scene, he becomes known as like that ranked play kid from what was before MW2. I'm already forgetting, but
A Vanguard?
I don't think. Yeah, it would have been Vanguard, I think. He was friends with Abizi and really broke out and became known as like that rank play guy who was just frying in rank play, and then he gets his shot on some other teams over the last years, and really he had his opportunity, but really, I wouldn't say like, he really started to show what he was capable of until the end of last season with LA Thieves when, they had those back-to-back top 3 finishes at Champs and EWC. And this year has just been, building off of the end of last season. So I really do think JoeDeceives in an interesting position. I mean, if I'm him right now, whether this is true or not, I gotta be. I'm playing into it. I'm like, yeah, it's true. Like, OpTic wants me. I'm gonna shop that around all the other teams too, and be like, oh, you hear OpTic wants me? Like, do you guys want me too? How much you willing to pay? And maybe a little NIL transfer portal negotiating skills here, but yeah, in all seriousness, we don't know if there is even a slight sliver of validity to this. I just thought it was funny that at least Beans and Insight were playing into it, and it'll be probably more something we'll look towards after the season concludes this year. Because I do think this Toronto team, obviously they've had the online issues this stage during these major 3 qualifiers, but the record speaks for themselves. They've been playing pretty good COD, and JoeDeceives has been a big part of that. So will be interesting to see what the future holds for him. And obviously, he's still a really young kid, and his future is incredibly bright in the CDL, in my opinion, regardless of what team it's on.
Mike, real quick, so we can just cut this out. For Carolina, are they able to eat
What happened?
Them, or they're going to sweep? Part of that
Your mic has been fine the whole time.
They might it's fucking up on the stream though. Back the.
We even saw just this past. I really do.
4 and 8. It's been like that the whole show.
Is one of the.
Let me see. Dylan Rex is heading to the Carolina Royal Ravens, and we have some really good matches to finish up the major 3 qualifiers to talk about. We'll give our predictions near the end of the show. But before we get to any of that, how are you doing, Bink?
All right, like you said, talk again. Fun to talk about today.
Test.
The roster confirmation. No, I just heard it on the YouTube where you said it has been like that the whole show, and I heard it. We were gonna have the move. It doesn't sound like that when you talk in here.
What mic am I using here?
Got the news confirmed for once, so that's good. And then this is the last week of qualifiers before Major 3 next week, and there's, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks, there's only 5 matches for each team, so there's a lot of implications on the line for who starts in winner bracket, who starts in losers at the major, and all that stuff with literally these matches.
Test. I don't know why I would do that.
It still sounds like it on Twitch.
Do you hear me now?
You sound fine in the Discord call. It's when I unmute Twitch or YouTube to say.
Let's see.
Just could be the difference.
It's still fucking up.
You sound fine in the Discord call. It's when I unmute Twitch or YouTube to say. Do you have like a fan going?
No.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's still fucking up.
You sound fine in the Discord call. It's when I unmute Twitch or YouTube to say. Do you have like a fan going? Bad. That's what it sounds like.
Alright, I'm gonna check it again, see if.
No.
Bad. Alright, I'm gonna check it again, see if. I don't know what the deal is. Unplugged it.
I mean, it can't be anything related to Discord if you sound fine in here.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the recording OBS stuff.
So I don't sound like any different like than I usually do.
No, you sound fine here. That's why I thought when I saw the comment that he was talking about me, as I got worried. Like I was unmuting the mic and stuff, and I unmuted Twitch to hear myself, but I didn't even try it for you because I assumed you were fine. As I got worried, like our recording OBS.
I don't sound like any different like.
I don't know enough about the recording OBS stuff.
Last time it sounded fine. Any different like than I usually.
No, you sound fine.
Hold on. That might be it. I don't know what that is, but
here. That I think I didn't hear it that time.
So I don't sound like any different.
I can hear myself talking through your mic though. When I saw the comment that he was talking about me, as I got worried, like I was unmuting the mic and stuff, and I unmuted Twitch to hear myself, but I didn't even try it for you because I assumed you were fine.
Talk real quick.
Talk.
All right. But it should be fine now, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think. Do you have the podcast playing, like through speakers or something?
Yeah, it's on like a YouTube. I'm watching the YouTube stream.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why. Because I was like, that I can make your audio go through my mic, which happened that one time, but it was the YouTube stream. So can you just watch the YouTube stream, see if it, or the Twitch stream either way, just to see that it sounds all right now?
Yeah, you just sound fine on YouTube.
All right. I don't know what you want me to do, to be honest, because we're half an hour in, and I'm pretty sure it has been like this since the very beginning.
I mean, what do you want to do?
I don't know.
Do you think it's like the first half is unsalvageable? Like you said,
Dylan WRECKS heading to the Carolina Royal Ravens, and we have some really big matches to finish up the Major 3 qualifiers to talk about. We'll give our predictions near the end of the show, but before we get to any of that, how are you doing, Bink?
Oh, jeez. Right, I think that's, unless you want to just redo the whole thing, but I already forgot everything I said, and if I do at this point, I know I'm definitely not going to talk as long as I did. Did it? Yeah. All right. Yeah.
All right. So you basically said that.
I think I finished up with that. So if we just want to move on and just do the predictions, I think it's fine.
All right.
Unless you had anything about Joe that you wanted to say.
No, I'll just go into the predictions. All right. Let's get into the predictions portion of this show. We obviously are ending the Major 3 qualifiers this weekend, starting on Friday, April 18th. The Toronto Ultra will play the very red-hot Miami Heretics at the moment. I'm going to go with the Toronto Ultra, but I certainly understand anybody that would pick the Heretics right now.
And I'm going to be one of them. I'm hopping on the Vamos train and going with Miami. I just think, um, both teams have been hot, like you said, so this really could go either way. I think probably if we're looking at the previous iteration of Miami and both teams were in the same position, I would lean towards Toronto, but I really think this Miami team is different with the addition of Super. Toronto was a really good search team earlier in the season. They're still, I think they're second when they talk on broadcast about the search stats with them in Carolina. So they're still a good search team. But I just think Super has played really well in search. So I'm interested to see how that matchup works out. So I'll go Miami here. This should just be a really good match either way, though.
Boston versus C9. I'm going to go with the breach, but I think this could pretty much go either way.
Yeah, I mean, I've been picking against Boston for a bit now, so I'll take C9 here. Get some variety in these matches early on, so I like that a little bit. But yeah, this is an interesting one, just in the sense of, both of these teams in the grand scheme of things are trying to, solidify their place for champs. Obviously, Cloud9 is in ninth place, and Boston is in that group tied at 130 CDL points for sixth, seventh, eighth. So, a win here by Boston makes the gap between them and C9 much bigger. But a win here from Cloud9 puts them basically one match away from being tied with Boston almost. The 5 points skews that. But, I mean, a big point. This is a big match for qualifier standings for this major and in the grand scheme of the season. So, it'll be interesting to see how it works out, but I'll take C9 here.
And the final match on Friday, LA Thieves versus LA Gorillas Mate. I really want to pick LAG, but I am going to pick LAT.
I got to pick LAT too, but it's definitely, I don't have the number here. I know we said it whenever they played earlier this season. This Battle of LA has been LAG dominated since LAT joined the CDL. I believe the last time we looked at it, it was LAT were 3-9 against LAG, and then I think LAT won this year, so I think they're 4-9. That exact number might not be right, but it is somewhere in that vicinity. Even if it's not remotely close for whatever reason, I'm misremembering it. LAG have definitely won this rivalry matchup more than LAT have so far early in the CDL history, but I do not expect that trend to continue here.
Saturday, April 19th, Vancouver Surge versus C9. I'm going to go with Vancouver.
Yeah, I'll take Vancouver too. Definitely a match that, again, just looking at where the teams are in the standings, it's one that means a little bit more for Cloud9. Depending on how that Boston match goes, they could be in a position where they have to win this match to have a shot at winners bracket. Whereas Vancouver, already have 3 wins, and they should be in the winners bracket for Major 3 at this point. So technically, this match doesn't mean as much to Vancouver as C9. That could be a way for C9 to sneak in a win here, but Vancouver is the better team, so I'll pick them.
Miami versus Minnesota. I didn't pick the Heretics in the first match, but I will pick them here.
And I was all about Minnesota last week, didn't work out for me, and that means I got to pick Miami here, which means I'm picking Miami to go 2-0, which means they won't go 2-0, but I'll still do it.
Toronto versus LAG. I'm going with Toronto.
Yep, tough break for the LAG boys, but I think Toronto takes this one too.
And the last match on Saturday, Vegas versus Atlanta. Vegas, for the first time all season, first time since the Falcons organization entered the CDL, have the opportunity to create a win streak. They won their last match, of course, against OpTic Texas. I do not believe that it's going to happen here. I'm going with the Atlanta phase.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick Atlanta here too. Definitely a match where you have to think a little bit more than previously. Like, you see Atlanta versus Vegas when it's the All Saudi project, you're just not even thinking about it for even a split second. But with Vegas coming off that win, you got to think about it for at least a fraction of a second. Both teams are 1-2 in these qualifiers. FaZe with a 6-7 map count, and Vegas with a 5-7 map count. So, not going to say they've been the same team so far in these qualifiers, but statistically it's been pretty close. But I think, Atlanta's got some big matches this weekend, and they definitely don't want to start in the loser bracket for, I assume, would be the first time in organization history. So I'm expecting them to come out on fire this weekend and take care of business here.
Sunday, April 20th, Easter Sunday, Boston versus Vegas. I will go with Boston. I don't think it's a shoo-in for either team. They even Vegas has, they lost to Minnesota, which was certainly a very winnable series. Boston has had these matches where it would seem like they're probably not the favorite, but they somehow win. And this is more of a toss-up than some of the series that they've won. So I'm going to go with the Breach.
Yeah, I will go with Vegas here. If Boston lose both matches this week to Cloud9 Vegas, they would be 2-3. If Vegas go 1-1 this weekend, as I would predict here, that would mean they would be 2-3. If OpTic lose their match, they would be 2-3. If Carolina lose their match, they would be 2-3. So needless to say, there is a scenario where multiple teams could be 2-3. Then we get tiebreakers, and that's part of what's going to happen here when there's 5 qualifier matches versus 7. So I'm picking Vegas here to try and, at least in my mind, pick for the chaos and see what happens for the tiebreakers, because especially with these next 2 matches coming up, if Vegas wins this one and everything plays out where there are 4 or 5 teams at 2-3, chaos could ensue.
Yeah, and this is one of the bigger chaotic matches, I guess. Atlanta versus OpTic. Atlanta, let's say they lose to Vegas, then they're 1-3 going into this match, and really have the chance to finish either last or very close to last in these qualifier standings. Same for OpTic, to be honest. OpTic started very well. Obviously, they can't finish 1-4, but they certainly could finish 2-3, like you're saying. And I'm going to go with FaZe, but I think this is a very interesting series for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I'm going to take FaZe over OpTic too. I just spaced out a little bit there because I saw something else we can talk about after this, but I don't know, how many times have we seen OpTic versus FaZe this year?
Like maybe 2 or 3.
I don't even know if it's been that many, but obviously it's different rosters and everything, so it doesn't really matter. OpTic's been the better team. I think
FaZe has been the better team.
Yeah, I don't even know. My head's now. I'm all. This is chalked, but okay. Rewind tape here. FaZe been the better team. FaZe should win this match. This is especially, like I said, if FaZe beat Vegas heading into this match, FaZe and OpTic would both be 2-2. That means the winner of this match would be 3-2 and basically guaranteed winners bracket at Major 3, and the loser would be 2-3 and have to rely on tiebreakers to try and get one of the bottom spots in the winners bracket. So I'll take Atlanta here, but should be a good match, hopefully. We'll have to wait and see.
And the final match of these qualifiers and the final match of the weekend, Carolina versus LAT, something we've already talked about a little bit on this show. I'm going to go with LAT. Obviously, Carolina's had a really, really hard time even being competitive with the Thieves so far this season. And I just don't think with a new roster, let's say they had 5 days of practice, I just don't know if that's going to be enough. Granted, LAT has not always been at their top level, especially online, but I still am going with the Thieves here.
Yeah, got to go with Thieves. We'll be excited to see WRECKS' debut, as we talked about earlier. But this is a match Thieves have dominated when they had Vivid in the lineup. I don't know how much just WRECKS joining this team and having a week of practice is really going to change that. So I'm gonna have to stick with LA Thieves here. Should be a good way to end the qualifiers, though. We get a taste of what WRECKS is capable of, even if it's a small dose. And then right after that, we'll have our bracket and be ready to head to Miami.
In the pick'em so far this season, you are 105-57, and I am 102-60. Was there something else that you wanted to talk about before we get out of here?
I just saw a Breaking Point tweeted 5 minutes ago. Asim's 12-year-old brother Yusef, I'm assuming that's how you said it, played with Methods in an Enable 10K tournament online. I know Methods was playing with Fatty, that part of that Meal Team 6. It's some sort of content creator tournament, and notable Ego Chall correspondent Tremi was the one who DM'd me saying that Fatty and Methods won. But Breaking Point just tweeted that Asim's 12-year-old brother was on Methods' team for that. And in the clip that they have, I believe he's 43 and 28 on a red card hard point that they're showing. So the unfortunate thing there about him being 12 years old is he's got to wait at least 6 years for to make his debut in either Challengers or the CDL. But that's going to be a name to keep an eye on now for, if the CDL's around in 2031. Keep that name Yusuf in the back of your mind.
Yeah, some people are saying he's 13, but I don't think that matters all that much. Still, 2030, 2031, it's going to be a while. We're all going to be dust by 2030, probably literally as well. But yeah, I mean, the new era of COD players, like we really haven't gotten that many of them because it feels like even like Hydra, I guess, is in maybe a different era than maybe Simp is. But still, I think it's more similar. There are now kids like Yusuf who, I mean, they have been around since competitive Call of Duty was like relatively mainstream. Because he would have been born in 2012, 2013.
I was just gonna say he was born in COD 4 and World at War and Black Ops 1. Those games were released before he was even born. That's crazy.
Yeah, so some kids that are really good, I'm sure, but can't compete. They have been alive in the COD Champs era of COD esports, which is pretty crazy to think about. That makes me feel very, very old because that's when I started getting into competitive COD. So I'm going to need this to stop. I'm going to need these kids to be banned from the internet for at least 5 to 6 years, and then it won't make me feel too bad. But yeah, there's going to be a bunch of these kids, I'm sure, that are, I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they're just going to go into Warzone and just fry for 6 years and kind of bide their time, play wagers in the meantime, or play ranked play. I don't know. The bad part about this is he does not have the same setup as even his brother did. And I mean, that's kind of sad. A lot of these kids would have just been S&D grinders for 5-6 years. Something we talked about, with Blast on the last episode, how he's now transitioning to Warzone, or he has been in Warzone, but he's now on 100 Thieves. But he was one of those kids, he was literally a kid playing S&D against pro players and just absolutely dog walking some of them. So that just doesn't exist on the same plane as it used to. And that's unfortunate, but at least there is something like this that gives Yusuf or any other child, literal child, a chance to shine in this way. That's why we need more open bracket events and, us to take the age gap down. I don't think it really matters. The 18-year-old thing, I understand why it is in place. At the same point, though, Call of Duty and a lot of other esports, some of those kids are very, very good and probably pro level by the time they're 15, 16 years old. We've seen Kenny and TJ and Temp and a lot of these, Simp obviously was Simp Selim, all those guys that were on the EU cadets. The whole reason that they were even on that team was because they could not legally compete in the CDL. So we need something to kind of maybe a high school league. I don't know what the solution is, but I think it would be cool to see more of kids like this just fry on a really big stage. But yeah, that about does it, I think. I'm sorry if there are any technical difficulties while you're listening or watching this. We did not even know until 20-25 minutes in. So if there are no technical difficulties, just ignore this and we'll that means I did some magic in the end. But please like, subscribe, or follow the podcast feed wherever you're listening or watching on. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please follow the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Ego Chall Podcast. You can also follow Bink on Twitch, twitch.tv/JBink with 2Ks. And you can also follow both of us on Twitter at JBink with 2Ks, at Pres Byers, and the podcaster is at Ego Chall Podcast. We will be back this weekend to talk about the final week of the Major 3 qualifiers, and we will have a pretty clear idea of who is starting in the Major 3 winner bracket and who is not. And with the tiebreakers that Bink was just talking about, that could be a very, very painful way to start in the losers bracket for some of those teams. But yeah, we'll be back on Sunday, April 20th, Easter Sunday night, to talk about all the matches and whatever might have happened between right now and Sunday night. That does it for me. Bink, take it away.
Yeah, thank you guys as always for all the support. Shout out Fame Paid and the YouTube channel for at least letting us know about the technical stuff going on with the mic. And, like Preston said, hopefully he works his magic and we sound like idiots talking right now because nothing happened on your end. But otherwise, hope you were able to bear with us through this episode. A shorter one, nonetheless, not as much to talk about. But yeah, final week of Major 3 qualifiers. Next week, we're into Major 3 itself. And then right after that, we start the Major 4 qualifiers right away. So really heating up, getting into the nitty-gritty of the season. I'm really pumped up about it. And yeah, can't wait to break it all down for you once we know what happens this weekend. So looking forward to the next show. We'll see you guys then. And remember to send the chow.